Birmingham is the fastest growing city in Europe, but is anyone feeling the benefits? It's the youngest, but where is the space for young people? It's sprawling, but why are events and opportunities focused on the city centre? Who's making these calls? Who's pulling the strings? Who runs Brum? Hola, 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 and welcome to Backlash Against The Bland, the podcast asked by you and answered by experts, artists and activists. We're dealing with the questions that young people are asking, but no one is answering. What is the best single thing about Birmingham?
Town, for me. I love going town, you know. I go like back in the day when you was younger, you just go town with your brethren. I still do that. Like, people don't understand that I be in town, and I don't even live here no more. But I legit come back to Birmingham so I can walk around town, so I can walk on Palisades, so I can walk up the ramp, so I can walk by McDonald's. I just love walking around in town.
This week we delve into the politics and culture of our hometown, Brum. The Brum Youth Trends Report is an inquiry into the thoughts, habits and realities of the young people of Birmingham. Why do we do it? To mobilise these voices and put them in the hands of policymakers and gatekeepers. We spoke to 1,300 young people to compile this year's report, which is available to download from brumyouthtrends.com. The report is brought to you by Beatfreeks Collective. So we chatted through some of the trends from this year's report with community and YSC member Selina Akthar, Free Radicals community developer Zeddie Lawal, and comedian, broadcaster and proud Brummie Sideman Allday. If you're interested in what young people in Birmingham have to say, we strongly urge you to go and read the report. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit? Let us know who you are.
Okay, so I'm Sideman. I am a presenter on Radio 1, 1 Extra and the Asian Network in London, but I am a proud Brummie, come from Birmingham. I was actually born in Jamaica, but I came here when I was like 11, 12, and then I moved to Birmingham shortly after that, and I've just been a Birmingham resident ever since, and I've just grown to have real pride for my city and love for my city. And I've lived in a couple places in Birmingham because we was dodging bailiffs back in the day. But I've lived in Erdington, I've lived in Handsworth, I've lived in West Brum, I've lived in Allenbrook, I've lived in Warden. So yeah, I know Birmingham like the back of my hand.
And aside from the fact that we asked you to be here, why are you here today?
I'm here because I have love for my city and I want to do anything possible that I feel like is worthwhile and efficient to help my city grow. And the reason why I say worthwhile and efficient is that I believe there's a lot of initiatives that aren't really working. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying? But I feel like this report is important for reflecting what we think about what is going on. You understand what's in the thoughts and the minds of the young individuals from Birmingham, and they're not being heard. As I said in my speech, they don't know nothing about what's going on in the youth, and I'm a prime example of that because they don't know who I am. Like, I'm not a horn tutor, but I'm probably the biggest comedian in Birmingham right now.
Yeah.
Probably. I'm trying, like, it's hard for me to think of somebody in Birmingham that's done as much stuff as me. I'm the only voice of Birmingham on 1 Extra and Radio 1. There is no other Birmingham voice on there, and they have no idea who I am whatsoever. That means if they ain't even listening to Radio 1 or 1 Extra, then they really aren't trying to know what their youths are thinking at all, because that's a mainstream platform, much less to go on to Instagram or YouTube where the youth really are showing their arts and their talent. So I think something has to be done. A gap has to be bridged within the city.
And I think Anissa, our CEO, and the team, a lot of the thoughts behind this is that this is a publication that you can put in front of people's faces, that they have to look at, that they have to see, and that the idea behind inviting keynote speakers and policymakers on the day of the summit is to put people in front of those counter narratives that they're not hearing or seemingly not responding to. Selina, can I ask you to introduce yourself a little bit and communicate why you are here today?
So I'm Selina, and I am a member of the Youth Steering Committee for Beatfreeks. I come from Winson Green, an area that is not very represented, and I want to be that person who represents my people, who have a variety of talents and abilities, but the area in itself is associated with crime and things that do not represent young people in the best way possible. So yeah, I just want to be a voice for these young people and show them the real talent that is there, and show them, white Caucasian people don't have to be at the forefront. It could be people from diverse backgrounds as well. And, so like young people are like put in a position from a young age, expected to go through this educational system, and they aren't given a variety of options or any other directions to go into, and it's almost as if the teachers and the students, the teachers are told to the teachers play a vital role in allowing a young person to make a massive decision in terms of growing and deciding who they are and who they want to be. But it's almost as like the teachers lay down a certain amount of things, saying that you have to go in this direction. There's no other route for you. Like yesterday, for example, I was talking to a much older woman, and I just happened to speak to her at the bus stop, and we were just talking about the youth and young people in general. And from then on, I realised how important it is for a young person and an older person to communicate with one another. Communication is such a big thing if you want to actually see change.
The perspectives coming through the report in regards to employment, routes of education and further education, do you have any key findings to pull out of that were referenced in what Selina was saying?
Yeah, so I guess one of the biggest trends is at the back of the report, where it is the way forward isn't one road, and it isn't straight either. And so while the employers and the industry and the institutions have got massive expectations for young people to, one, complete their A-levels, as well as going through that entire educational system, not everybody is finishing, and also these young people also need to support themselves. So from areas like Small Heath, for example, there was a group of young females that we spoke to that said we also need to support our families as well as study, as well as plan for university, and there is that pressure upon them. And so as employers, we need to kind of accommodate that. You're also talking about young people conforming into the way of the institution, whereas the institution and the city in itself need to change our culture to prepare for the next generation of young people that are entering the workforce. So the report says we need to incite a communicative culture, so young people are calling out organisations for not necessarily being accommodative for them, but fundamentally decisions are being made without them and their needs about their futures as well, and so we need to kind of find a way to work together, and that is organisations kind of branching out and going to spaces where young people are before they create their new plans of recruitment around diversity. They need to make sure that young people are included in that process too.
Selina, I've just also noticed that your face is the back of the report.
My double chin.
Really, there is nobody more entitled to be here. Like, as you look up to the future, the forging the future that you want to see. Wow, that's strong. It's really, really strong. Can I move on to the next question, Sideman, and pick you up? Because if I'm right, you kind of you started shaping your practice in Birmingham, but then moved elsewhere for creative opportunities. Is that right?
That's correct.
And that's one of the recurring trends of the report and the summit, that young people feel like they need to leave the city in order to find opportunities. So what makes them go, and why should they stay?
Yeah, because there is a disconnect between the youth and as you would say, the gatekeepers. I really say the adults, really, the older people of Birmingham. It doesn't just start at corporations. It starts at how the older generation in general in Birmingham look at the younger generation. The younger generation doesn't feel comfortable to go to them. It doesn't even think of them as an avenue. And the reason why they aren't is because they feel alienated. If you look in London, BBC Radio 1 Extra, where I work, has been a hub for cultivating talent from the urban community, and that's because they have dared to try. Even with these youth, some of their lyrics, they're not polished, they're not perfect at all. They are diamonds in the rough, and yet they have been, when you look at people, all of these rappers now that are superstars, the Krypton Conans, the Stormzy's, all of these guys were diamonds in the rough that were given a chance by one of the most official platforms in the country, which is BBC, and given that chance to rise as a talent. See, I remember one time, when I was coming up, I was speaking to Lady Leisha one time, and I was talking to her about how to get help and and blah blah blah. And she looked at me, she said, "Nobody helped me." And it was so chilling when she said that to me, because she looked me in my eye and she said, "Nobody helped me." And this is a girl, that used to take her mixtapes and go on the bus and put them on every seat, on multiple buses. That's the kind of drive that you have to have from Birmingham to make it from Birmingham.
There's a key area in the report in terms of like arts, culture and heritage, how you express, where young people not only use the arts as a form of kind of self-care and helping and aiding their mental health, but it's also what we've highlighted, that there are not enough opportunities to get, as you were saying, from like Birmingham to BBC One Extra. There's no support in the middle ground, and as the arts sector as a whole needs to do that, as well as the arts is too city centre centric. So again, like there are not enough opportunities being offered to young people within their communities. Like when we went and surveyed all of these young people, a lot of them were saying, "I don't even know like what's happening in the city. I don't know how to get involved in the arts." And we asked if they liked arts and how they consumed it, and they were like, yeah, of course, but they just didn't know where to start. We're currently in a generation of DIY, do it yourself, where young people are now using the skills and tools that they do have, fortunately, with access to the digital, to the internet, as well as kind of having their own community supporting each other, and they are getting the skills they need to amplify themselves. However, you're totally right in terms of they need that support to either, even if it's a financial support in terms of like getting offered like travel to go to London, or like even a mentor to give them advice of where to go.
Off of what you picked up on in this report, like talking about Generation DIY. So I know in the past, this year, Eventbrite has picked up on a couple of key players in Birmingham who are doing things themselves, and I'll just pick this up from the report. DIY is in renaissance and Birmingham has welcomed it back. So we asked people sitting down with us now to pick one respondent quote from the report and talk about why they've picked it, and really what stuck out from the report for them individually. So what did you pick, Selina?
I've chosen a respondent aged 18 who stated that the education system and us being pressured to grow up so fast without being taught how to act grown up. So I feel like I don't blame young people for feeling. So there's young people out there who are surrounding me at the moment who have no idea where they want to go in life, and they're unaware of the skills that they have, they're unaware of the abilities that they have, because they're almost thrown into the system which tells them you need to go a certain way. The lack of alternatives, so it's like a one-way route, and when young people are thrown into this system of going to university, they aren't shown any other routes, and just simply they have to stand on their own 2 feet without being taught how to stand on their own 2 feet. They have to go through this system, and then a lot of young people are facing mental health issues, and they're suffering from all the depression and whatnot, not able to, truly be themselves and get to where they want to. And a lot of people don't know where they want to go anymore because of the lack of support system in place for them. Yeah, like mental health is such a big thing at the moment in young people, and there are support like the pause, for example. We have pause, we have a lot of pause, and we have a lot of mental institutions which allow young people, to go to these places and help them. But I do feel like, they're not reaching out to these young people. Young people are afraid to go to these places because of the stereotype associated with the older generation, and them not helping young people in any way to, like the younger generation feel afraid to go to these people because of that stigma associated with them being young and antisocial, etc. And just generally, young people are facing mental illness on their own.
So the solutions and the solution makers are coming from a completely different place in terms of empathy and understanding what goes into the state of mental health for young people today. And sadly, like, that was something that was really reflected throughout conversations about health and mental well-being in the report. This sentence from the closing section: youth culture has played a massive part in the normalisation and acceptance of mental health, but the burden still very much falls on young people to manage their own mental health. Zeddie, I know this is something that's very close to your heart. Could you talk us through a little bit about what came out from Brum Youth Trends regarding specifically young people and their heads?
Yeah, so again, a big trend that came out was anxiety is an epidemic. So it touches on the fact that there is no space away from that digital communication, as well as young people between age 15 to 17 in particular. So 15, you're about to go into your GCSEs, 17, you're about to choose what's happening after college, and there is no space for them to kind of vent. As again, mentioning kind of like culture and being at home, and the older generation not necessarily allowing them to talk about their mental health, as well as being constantly exposed to people dealing with mental health issues, as well as like having to adhere to some societal pressures, as well as, you know, Instagram and Snapchat and celebrities kind of being literally a click away. Anxiety is becoming an epidemic for these young people because they're just so worried about what happens next. Who do they become? What do they do? And so in terms of like creating a solution, unfortunately, like the mental health sector in the city has not necessarily been online or proactive enough to cater to these young people. Like organisations like Paul's, it's a walk-in centre. So as you were saying, like young people have to kind of, with all of the pressures of being online, have to make that decision to go into their space, whereas they need to come out of their space and actually make themselves more aware and present, which is why we have a fantastic event called Headspace, which kind of uses creativity to access mental health. So we work with about 8 young residents, kind of train them up on producing an event, and then bring the mental health sector to them, where there are talks, there are performances, there are workshops, but also, and most importantly, they have to kind of come offline to really engage and experience Headspace, and that's massively encouraged. Like they don't necessarily have to log out of their Instagram or social medias, but it's encouraged to kind of explore and connect offline, as well as kind of have counselling provisions after the session, after the event as well. So yeah.
This has been Backlash Against The Bland. Thank you to our panellists Selina, Akthar, Sideman, Allday and Zeddie Lawal. This podcast is user built, so please head to the description or write in the comments to leave your feedback. Backlash Against The Bland is supported by the Space and Arts Council England through National Lottery funding. It's been hosted by me, Bethany Slinn, produced by Fabio Thomas, with graphic design by Bradley Morrison, audio-visual editing by Pete Styles, animation by Malika Holder, and music by Earwax Addict. Like, subscribe, share and review, subscribe, review.